we're
I think we're live now.
We're live. Excellent. So hello everybody. There's just 4 of us on this week's Thursday Live. Amanda's off on an appointment, so she might join us shortly. And Jane is busy sorting out some blogs for one of our clients, creating some branded images and stuff like that for some guest blogs that they've had done. So just got the 4 of us today, which is not necessarily a bad thing. What were we talking about just before we went live? Pam was sharing something with us that she's really missing during lockdown. Pam, tell us.
I just said that I miss somebody making tea for me. That I'm not having to make my own. You know, I've got 2 kids in the house. Nobody's making tea for me. Are you guys getting tea made? Hang on, Mark.
Occasionally.
Mark does.
I made Heidi one this morning as well.
Mark sends down his orders via his printer.
I haven't tried that since. Didn't go well, that one.
I think I've made about 10 years worth of coffee in this lockdown, just letting you know that.
What's that, 3?
That doesn't count, Christine. I'm sorry, but it doesn't.
I'm looking forward to getting back to a point where I'm too busy to make the tea again. So yeah, that's cool. So we thought we'd have a little bit of a theme for this week's live lunch, because anyone that has been sort of tuning in over the last few weeks we've been doing this, they'll know Mark's been really, really busy producing lots of websites for new clients and existing clients as well. And we've had, some of those sites have gone live already, which is fantastic. But I thought we could have a little bit of a chat around. So there's this thing, if I'm really blunt about it, and I think anyone that's a web designer, web developer, or works in marketing will have experienced this thing where we do a piece of work for someone. So let's say we're producing a video, they then kind of say, well, but I haven't gone viral yet. And you're kind of like, well, you don't go from A to Z. There's like all these steps in between, and there's no guarantee you're going to go viral. And I think with websites as well, it's kind of like we produce a website and everyone's waiting to be top of page 1 of Google, and it doesn't happen overnight. There's a few things that need to be done to sort of create that scenario and encourage Google to come to the site and have a look at it, and there's a few things at play. So I thought it'd be quite useful for us to chat around those and the activities we do for our clients that help their website perform, and just have a general discussion about what works and what doesn't really. So there's some techie stuff which I could ask Emily, but she'll freak. Because
I'm a tech master now, Christina. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not. Don't ask me.
but Mark, when it comes to that website first launching, obviously there's a few things tech-wise that we need to make sure happen so that Google even knows the site's there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we build all our sites and our own site as well in WordPress. So we've got some tools that we can use in there. The main one that we use is a plugin called Yoast SEO. So obviously that's all installed and set up within the back end of the sites, and that enables clients to add SEO information in the back end. So updating things like meta descriptions, meta titles, looking at keywords, and it also gives us some tools like a bit of a traffic light system to say, well, actually this blog or this page needs these improvements to actually enable a better pickup on the SEO side of things. So yeah, it's a really good tool to use.
Absolutely. I think there's quite a few things in terms of on-page SEO that people don't necessarily think about, that, and obviously we'll come on to content in a minute, but whenever I'm producing a blog for us, I'm always really thinking about that on-page SEO element as well. It's probably worth mentioning at this point, you've got like people that provide SEO services, and they'll go in and they'll do a lot of stuff like creating backlinks, a lot of working on your internal links within your site, that sort of stuff, and they're just constantly going over that site and making those improvements and looking at what keywords you're using across the site and all that sort of stuff. The things we're thinking about are more on the kind of sort of marketing outreach side of stuff as well. So that there are kind of like two elements to it, and some things have more of an effect on how your site performs, and some things have quite a kind of like an incremental effect. But if you're doing it regularly, actually it does get help to get the ball moving, especially in the early days. So when it comes to the on-page SEO, the stuff you can do when you're structuring a blog or structuring just a main page on your site, what are the key things that need to be included?
Things like your H titles, that type of thing. So obviously your H1 tends to be, your main sort of blog title, but then looking at subtitles that are relevant and using sort of relevant keywords in those subtitles as well. And again, making sure that the content of the blog includes those sort of, key phrases that you want to be found for. So sort of general things like that, really. Sorry, Mr. Green is online. So he's commenting away, something to do with very important to sort out your back end today.
Oh, okay. Is he having issues with his back end?
I don't know. Maybe he'll respond to that one in a moment.
Yeah, like I said, I think it really is. It's that site structure thing. I was talking with a client or a prospect a couple of days ago. We were looking at their website, and a lot of the pages on this, they would have had it's quite a new site, sort of 3 or 4 pages. They haven't got anything on a blog yet, but they wanted a site that was really, really visual. So they've ended up with a site that probably in total only had about 400 words on it. So as much as we want to make sure that we are, presenting well when it comes to our website, we do still need to make sure we're communicating the information. And it's important to understand how Google reads the website as well. So obviously it's going to read the text, but when you've got lots of images, there's ways in which we can strengthen how Google sees that imagery.
Yeah, so alt tags, I take it you're talking about. Yeah.
Now, everyone knows this is so unrehearsed.
Yeah. So Emily.
Well, I think you can answer that, Mark.
No, I mean, in simple terms, the alt tag is a bit of descriptive text that Google will pick up on as well. So, if you're writing a blog about Facebook Live and you've got an image in there, then you'd probably tag that image as, as Facebook Live or something relevant like that. And again, it's just something else that Google can pick up on within the blog to actually find that information.
Mark, do you tend to put the focus key phrase the same as the alt text within the image, or do you change it?
I think you could do both, really. So it depends
Okay.
what it is, really. You might have multiple images anyway. So
So if you have an image, I guess that relates to a specific thing.
Yeah. So you might. I think within Yoast, it does give us one of the sort of traffic lights is whether we've got the key phrase as an alt tag. So again, having multiple images in a blog can sometimes help as well, because then we can have the key phrase in there, but also other things that are relevant to the content as well.
Yeah, I actually had a think about the other day where it was saying that the focus key phrase had been mentioned too many times, and I haven't had that before.
Yeah.
Which I thought was I didn't know, to be honest, that could happen until that did happen. So now I was sort of looking through, thinking, oh no, what can I remove?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's to get away from the old style thing of sort of 10, 15 years ago, where people just overload text with keywords and hidden sort of keywords and things on sites, which, obviously Google is a lot more intelligent about now. So it's to stop you trying to do that, really.
Is there a, so when we upload the blogs, and as you said, sort of the main title's the H1 title, and then we have the H2 titles as the subheadings, and it's sort of automatically set to that, I believe, or when I log in, it's automatically set to that. Is there a reason why it is, or should we, I know that's what we recommend, but is that setting there basically on purpose, or is that just a setting that we have set up in particular websites?
It depends. I mean, in terms of the hierarchy, then the hierarchy is always set there, within WordPress or other sort of web builders. So you'll always have your H1, your H2, H3, and that's just literally a hierarchy of things. But in terms of a physical thing and a visual thing, if we've built the site, then we'll create the styles that actually match those H titles as well, so it looks nice as well.
Right, okay, cool.
I think it's important as well. So we started talking about blogs. So in an ideal world, if you've got a new site and you want it to perform, you've got to make sure that site is really working for you. And part of that is about getting that fresh content on there, getting those blogs updated. So we recommend 2 blogs a month, minimum 500 words each, ideally. That blog, it might be a written piece of text, it might be one of our clients does that, they do like video interviews with people and they embed the video and have a little almost like show notes, so it's more of a vlog than a blog essentially. So things like that can work really, really well, but it's about the consistency. Okay, the consistency of that fresh content on there. The way that Google will come and read that page, it doesn't read that page on your website the way that we do as humans. It reads the title, and then if that's not quite enough information for it, then it's going to read your headings, and then maybe it's actually going to read the actual text itself. So we've really got to think about how we structure the article itself, both from a robotic, how is Google going to read it sort of standpoint, but also in a way that still continues to give value to the people coming to the site. And I talk about human SEO. As individuals, how are we going to process that information? People are going to thumb through it before they decide whether or not to read it. So are those subheadings punchy enough? It's that kind of stuff. It's really thinking about it that way as well, because again, the more traffic we get coming through, the more Google's going to kind of pay attention and notice that the site's there, understand what it should be ranked for, that sort of stuff. There's been another sort of shake-up in the Google algorithms in the last sort of 6 weeks or so. And what they're saying now is that, we do a lot of work in terms of going back through our old blogs and updating things there, updating the stats, updating sort of imagery, titles, that sort of stuff. Updating the imagery is, it's a good thing from a branding perspective, but it's not really going to do much from an SEO perspective. Whereas actually going through and rewriting paragraphs because there's something more relevant that's happened since, or adding some extra information into that blog, it's a more sort of meaningful change to keep that content up to date. That can really help as well in terms of the performance of that content. But I think the key thing is, and this is probably where Pam and Emily can have a bit more of a voice in this conversation, that once you produce that content, don't just sit and wait for people to come to it. You've got to sort of get it out there as well. So Pam, we were talking this week, one of your clients has had a piece of content that they've they want to get as many eyes on as possible. We've sort of discussed strategies around that, haven't we?
Yeah, because I learned quite a few things there as well about about that as well. Because we were trying to. Initially, the client it wasn't that they didn't want it on the website. They just wanted the content original and going onto LinkedIn. And it was kind of like, how do we get the content onto, or the blog onto LinkedIn without kind of having a link in it? So I did play around with that yesterday. It was quite interesting to see. Although I'm still not sure I was comfortable where the link was, because basically we did put the blog on the website. We put some text into the post and put the link into the comment box. And I don't know, I'm not an OCD person by any stretch of the imagination, but it just didn't look right. It actually annoyed me And I was going, I can't wait to move it. I want to move it. But do you know, I don't know. I'm still not sure if that, I don't know if it would have made any difference. I would have loved to have tried it out with the link in the original post against the link in the comment, just to see how, you know, you can't create that, can you?
Okay, so what Pam's talking about, because I think it's really clear in your head, but
oh yeah, sorry,
I know what you're talking about. So Pam's client, they had a blog they wanted to put out there, and they wanted to really maximize it on LinkedIn. So to start off with, they were kind of going, well, you know, well, let's not put it on the website. Let's just put it straight into LinkedIn as a published article. And we basically said, no, we want to get everyone back to your website. We want them to read it on your website, because that's where, you know, they've got ebooks and things like that. They've got lead generation tools on their website. So if we can get people to their website, hopefully they'll engage with those things as well. Maybe they'll read something else on the blog. Maybe they'll look at the other pages on the website whilst they're there, rather than just keeping everyone within the LinkedIn ecosystem. Because that's, you know, bringing people back to your website is where you're going to get the most value. So we kind of had that conversation and explained that. And then it came to actually sharing. So the blog was on the website, and the next stage now is to distribute that blog, share the link to it, shout about it through your social media posting, your email marketing, you know, and get the message out there. Now, the thing is, on LinkedIn, and same is true for Facebook, they want to keep you within their ecosystem. They don't actually want you to leave the platform. So there are, the theories are out there that if you post a link on LinkedIn that's going back to your website, or go to any website outside of LinkedIn, you get less reach. Okay, so there's all sorts of strategies out there. So, you know, put the link in, do your post as normal without the link, and then add the link as a comment afterwards is one strategy. Okay, some people don't put a link in at all and then come back a few hours later after they've had some engagement and edit the post and put the link in there, and all that sort of stuff. And the reality is, in our experience, it just depends on your network whether it makes a difference or not. You know, for me personally, it makes zero difference, and it's certainly not worth my time for you know, at the times where there has been a difference. It's not worth my time going back, fiddling with it and everything else just to get an extra 50 people see it. You know, so like I said, you know, it's things like that you have to test this stuff. Oh, Amanda's just arrived. We'll let her in. So, like I said, you know, there's this whole post strategy as well. And this is the other thing when it comes to sort of getting your site out there, is that the more you can, hi Amanda, the more you can sort of create links to your site in other places, the better. They are backlinks, but they need to be in places that are high quality, meaningful as well. So, you know, just having a link to your site on a random site potentially could do more damage than good. So things like having links to your site out on social media, whether it is through social media posts, through links in your bios, that kind of stuff, that's really important. But actually, if we're doing that enough and we're building relationships, then we can get into a scenario as well where we can be guest blogging for people. So again, if you've got a new website, you know, what opportunities have you got where you can be writing content for someone else that's got links within it that will allow you to draw people back to your site as well? Because, you know, again, Google's seen that link between you and this other site that's also a quality site. That can really help from an SEO perspective. The reality is there's so many different things you can be doing to get your site to, you know, top of page one on Google, but it's not like you do all these things straight away and it instantly happens. We've got to keep sort of plugging at it, which is kind of takes a lot of patience, unfortunately. But like I said, the main thing really comes down to that content element. So Amanda.
She's here.
What have I missed? What have I missed? Sorry for being late, folks. I was having a good chat with a client though.
Excellent, excellent. So we're talking about when websites are first launched, what we can do to improve how they get ranked on Google, you know, that sort of stuff, basically. Thinking about SEO tactics, content tactics, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, what ideas do you have?
What for content and to help boost yourself up the rankings a bit?
Yeah.
Have you covered any already? Because I'm probably going to be covering old ground if you've already talked about a few.
Well, we have talked about a couple, but it'd be interesting to get your take.
Okay, yes, because I haven't seen what you've talked about either. So if I'm reiterating. So content is key. So because you can write a lovely website and it could be loaded with keywords and then it never ever changes. So in an ideal world, if you can add new content to your website around what you do, make it nice and relevant, load it with keywords, but equally write with the reader in mind. So there's two ways to write. I always think this when I'm writing copy. You have to kind of write for two people. One is Google or the search engines, and one is with the reader in mind. So it can be quite difficult because sometimes you're not writing a natural way, but if you can put headings in there, make sure they are loaded with your keywords, make them nice and easy to read, because obviously then, you're basically saying to Google, this is what I do. So you're helping it along and to push it, push yourself up the rankings. And if you can be really specific with that, even better. So yeah, regular content is good.
I think content, go on, Pam.
I was going to say, I think Amanda and I had a very brief discussion about this yesterday. She's quite naturally, I'm going to use the word gifted, but I mean, like you're quite natural with
very special
with your writing. That's what I mean. Is you have a knack to pick out the right words. See, I kind of write for me and forget about Google. So what's kind of like the tips that you would give to people who kind of are like me, who would, I don't think about Google when I'm writing. I mean, I do to a degree, but I think about what would people want to read? What's the headings that would stand out? What would you say to people who are kind of like, don't think about Google?
If you naturally write, as a human to start with, that's great, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, that's arguably better because you want your customers to read what you're writing. But yeah, editing and proofreading is as important, if not more important, than the content you're creating. So write as you would to start with, and then go back and do the headline, and the headline again. And funny enough, I was listening into a copywriting webinar this morning, and I came away thinking, did I really learn anything new? But one of the good points was that they spend a good chunk of time. They often come up with 20 or 30 headlines and then change them. So you look at kind of what would make somebody click on it. I wouldn't necessarily put loads of subheadings in articles I'm writing, but it makes for a better reader experience. And again, from a Google point of view, if you've got what they call H1, H2 headings down the page, it gives it the Google thumbs up. So yeah, write as you would normally, and then when it comes to editing and proofreading, just think about, have you got your keywords in there enough? And if needs be, sneak a couple more in.
AskThePublic.com. That's been my it's like my favorite website for that.
It looks like Christina was burning to say that as well.
Well, do I was going to tell a little story. So I make no secret, I hate writing. I don't enjoy it at all. I find it I really have to force myself. And a few weeks ago, I wrote I can't even remember what the article was now. And obviously when I write very naturally, how I speak, that kind of thing. And then once I've finished writing, I don't see it again until it's published. So it goes off to Jane and she'll proofread it. And then, I see the finished article, which is kind of a nice place to be in, really. But this one particular article, I'd written it And what happens is I write it, at the end of it, I think, right, what is the keyword? What are the 1, 2, maybe 3 words that I've used a few times in this article that we should then be optimizing this article for? And that's where I get the title from. And this one particular article, I was just clueless. And I sent it to Amanda with a little bit of profanity, saying that it was her problem now. She had to come up with a title.
Yeah, I like how you do that. It's like what they call in sport a hospital pass, I think, isn't it? Have that. Thanks.
It was basically like, I've done my bit, bang. But yeah, it's funny. It is really tough trying to think. I do almost work backwards. I need to deliver this piece of value. Okay, and it's really important that the content it's really important your website is offering value. A sell is almost like a byproduct of the value. So if you lead with value, if you're producing your content based on that, and then think about the technical SEO part of it after, has been quite a good approach for me. What you'll find is at that point, you know, the thing with keywords, if you have too many pages on your site that are optimized for the same keywords, Google doesn't like that either. So Emily mentioned it earlier, using a tool like Yoast that's going to help you manage your on-page SEO, that is going to flag that to you. So we are, let's say, we've got a client who specializes in cybersecurity. Okay, so let's say he's like, all of his pages are optimized based on cybersecurity as a phrase. When it comes to writing his blogs, he's going to want to optimize on similar terms for that sector. Okay, so he might optimize for data center manager, let's say, or might optimize for data protection on another article, or, you know, all these other similar terms that when Google sees them, you know, that they're all together in one place, it kind of understands actually this is going to be the site. This is going to be the site to answer that query. Because at the end of the day, Google's trying, whatever we pump into Google, Google's trying to give us the best possible experience, give us the best possible result. So if I'm looking to work in cybersecurity, there's no point showing me an article that is how to improve your CV. It's going to be how to improve your data engineer CV. You know, things like that can actually make that answer far more specific. And Google now is trying to, whatever you ask, it's trying to guess what you really meant.
Yes, yeah, of course, because when you start typing in a question to Google, for example, it kind of prompts and finishes it for you, doesn't it? So if you start typing in "how do I," it starts to finish the answer for you. Sometimes it's almost offensive. How do I find friends? How do I? You kind of think, what are you trying to tell me, Google?
You've been looking at Emily's search history again.
Hey, I have friends.
She does
always come up with really silly things. Yeah,
it does. But yeah, if you start typing it, you're right, it does predict that, and it tries to make the experience better. I'm just looking at the comments, and there's a chap called Kevin Robinson watching as well, who has said basically you need to make it readable first, which what I was echoing, and we're going to be partners in crime doing a webinar.
A webinar, yes,
for the coaching club on copywriting. So it's good to see we're healthily on the same page, saying readable first. So focus on that, and then see what you need to do to make it more search engine friendly.
Absolutely.
I have another question actually. What if because sometimes people don't always do, as we always say, consistency is key. So you're meant to produce your 2 blogs a month, but if somebody forgets to do their blogs for a couple of months and then they backdate them all, does Google penalize you for doing that, or does it not matter? Does anybody know?
It penalise you, but they wouldn't if you were just. I think you just publish them, to be honest.
Okay, so you're not you're not really penalised as such. The difference is looking at research that's been published, okay, on this, it's the difference is negligible, which is a word that I often struggle to say. And to be honest, it's this regularity thing. So if Google knows that every Friday morning you're going to publish a blog, it starts to expect that behaviour from your site as well. So when you then miss it, it kind of, you know, that there's reliability factors in this as well. So there's a guy called Neil Patel that anyone within the web world or SEO world will know of, and he's produced, I'm trying to think when I read it, probably the fact that I remember it means that it's probably in the last couple of weeks that I've read this article. But he did some split testing based on some of the sites that they have control over. So looking at things like, you know, using H2 tags, so like your header tags, how much of a difference does it actually make? How much of a difference does it make if we're just redating blogs rather than, you know, and tweaking a little bit here and there, versus actually doing some sort of more meaningful updating of the text, adding paragraphs, taking stuff out, updating the links we're referring to in terms of the outward bound links. And it was quite interesting, the research that came out based on, I think the research was based on sites from SME brands that were getting over 1,000 visits or 1,000 sessions per month. So I should probably try and dig it out and add the link in the comments for anyone that is interested in that. That sort of stuff's really interesting to me, and I read that stuff all the time, whereas for other people it might be a bit too technical, I don't know. So when I say too technical, what I really mean is boring. But, you know, it's quite interesting, the things that make a difference. But it's like user experience, then we're probably kind of getting away from the main sort of point of the discussion. But I think user experience is everything on a website. I was talking to someone else today, and they had, they'd basically been given some data that was a PDF report, and they wanted to publish that on their blog. So what they'd done is they'd created a blog post, and they'd literally written the text, you know, here's the whatever report for May 2020, and a link to the report. So those sort of 3 sentences or 2 sentences and 1 hyperlink, that was the blog. And it was like literally just the URL. There was nothing visual in there. There was no text to explain what it was. There was no call to action to tell people to actually click, you know, this is something you need to click on. And the way the site was styled, it wasn't an obvious hyperlink. They'd not even put a title in for the article as well. So although what they'd done is actually provide something really, really valuable for anyone visiting their site, and, you know, shooting that out across social media is fantastic, the user experience when you got there was 2 sentences and a hyperlink. From a Google perspective, there kind of wasn't anything there to be processed either to help their site perform. So, you know, I talked to her about things like, you know, using an SEO friendly title, writing a bit of a beginning, middle, end kind of, you know, précis of what was in the PDF itself. You know, and this was like a, I don't know, maybe a 3-4 page document that had a lot of detail in it. So it would be quite easy to get 300 words just explaining what, you know, what this was we were sharing with you, why you should actually read it, and then adding something visual with a call to action to say, click here for the information. You know, all of a sudden that's really, really strengthened. But also from a user perspective, if you're talking, you know, if we turn this conversation into a blog and said, these are 5 things to help your website rank better on Google, well, number 3 might be about blogging, and we can actually create a link within that, hyperlink some of the text and send it to another article that we've done specifically on how to write your blogs. And actually creating all those internal links as well is another way of really strengthening your site from a search engine optimization perspective as well. but you kind of have to have built up the content in the first place to be able to do those sorts of activities.
I was going to say that's one of the points in the traffic light system, isn't it? So you have a point for the internal links and a point for the external links as well. And sort of if you don't have enough, then that comes up as a red warning at the bottom there.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're on a WordPress, if your website's on WordPress and you're producing your blog, sort of scroll down, and underneath the window, if you like, where you can put your blog content in, you'll probably find some sort of SEO module in there. And I'd say, you know, a lot of developers use something called Yoast. It works off a traffic light system. So you put in your keyword, your focus keyword, which might be, you know, I'd say 1, 2, maybe 3 words. Sometimes you might put in what we call a long tail keyword, which is essentially a sentence. Okay, and you know, that's when we're getting like really into it at that point, and very specific. But once you've put that in there, it basically gives you a traffic light score. And obviously everyone wants to, you know, the traffic lights to be green for go. But if your article is, you know, showing red, it gives you a list of things you need to do to essentially fix that page. Okay,
and then user friendly, isn't it?
Yeah, and it, you know, it's tweaks. It really is tweaks that can make a difference. And the thing is, so I'm going to be careful how I word this. Okay, so you might have worked with a web developer. Their job is to produce you with a website, you know, a fully functional website. But actually, as the client, you need to be producing the copy. That's your job. Okay. And things like filling in these SEO modules, it's kind of a bit of a grey space, I would say, as to whether that's the responsibility of the person that's producing your website or you as the client that's, you know, that's part of producing the copy of the site. So for our sites, we will fill in that SEO information for you. We will put in the keywords and that kind of stuff, unless we've had a conversation with you to say otherwise. So we'll do that bit. Once we've done your site, we'll train you and we make sure you know how to use that bit as well.
We've got a handy video on it now as well.
Yeah, thanks, Emily.
Thanks to me. There's about 10 outtakes, but that's fine.
And I would say a true web developer would probably not fill in that information as standard. So the user experience of the client, or the client experience, is their expectation is, I'm going to have a website that's going to rank on page 1 of Google. Well, actually, that's not the service that you bought. The service you bought is the production of a website. So even when you're, you know, I guess what I'm saying is whether you're purchasing a website through us, through someone else, if you bought a website from someone 6 months ago, a year ago, whatever, stuff like this is good information to check. So, you know, the client that I was speaking to earlier today, when we were looking at her website, none of her blogs had been optimized, but the main pages had been. So it's obviously when they had their website done, that work had been done, but they'd not been given that sort of knowledge share or training to say, right, this is what you need to do with your blogs. She didn't even know that this bit existed. She'd seen it and just thought it was like, you know, technical stuff that she didn't need to do anything with.
I think once people do realise it's there, it's almost like, I think it was Emily said, you know, it almost gets a bit competitive, where you know, they're literally like, I can't get this to go green. And there is, you know, there's a really good reason, perhaps why it can't go green. That's not going to massively affect things, but you know, because they've got that visual element to it, they really want to, you know, work through all the steps and get it done right.
I've had people on the phone to me going, hi Emily, so I've just uploaded this blog, but I can't get it to go green. So I'm like, okay, but have a look at it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm like, this is fine. Like, it's going to be fine if you publish this as amber. But they're like, yeah, but I really want to get it green. So we sit there for about 10 minutes, probably sometimes get it green eventually. Sometimes I'm like, look, I'm really sorry, but this is great as it is. You're just going to have to accept that it's going to stay amber.
I'm like that as well. It's like, yeah. What's on it to go green, don't you?
But sometimes there isn't a relevant link or something you can add, and that is the one thing that's stopping it going from amber to green. So you just have to accept, actually, it's, I think as Kevin's put in some of the comments, as well about, you know, things being, you know, useful and readable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
I
it-
think
if you-
that's the-
Before being, you know,
Yeah.
worried about every single technical aspect of it.
If you're going to compromise reader experience by trying to get from amber to green,
Yeah.
don't, basically.
Yeah.
Don't accept that amber is good enough, because
Yeah.
it's going to be better for your readers.
Yeah.
I think, like sort of like Mark said, you can put in a link that probably would make it go green, but actually if that link isn't relevant, or you've sort of found a link and you're like, oh, this will do, like I just want it to go green, but it doesn't benefit the reader or the blog or relate to the blog really in any way, is actually making it worse, and there's no point in putting it on there. And I think you just have to accept that it's amber. Step away from the blog.
And that goes for you as well, Emily.
Don't lose sleep over
But I can talk the talk.
it. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the reader experience thing is so important. Again, you know, what happens when you start, and again, I'm talking about my own experience as not a natural born writer. When you start writing, you kind of struggle to get to 500 words. And when you put your blog in, you end up with this big, you know, it's red and you've got this big list of actions. But actually, the more you do that, the more you start to naturally incorporate things into your writing. So, you know, naturally, I'm looking at my keywords and I know they're going to be in my first paragraph. And I know they're going to be in at least one of my subtitles and things like that. So when it actually goes into WordPress, there's not as much to do. You know, probably is on an amber already at that point, just because I've learned through writing that stuff now naturally appears. But now when I write, it gets to a point where it's like 1,200 words. You know, I'm looking up and I'm at 1,200 words, whereas before I was looking up and I'm like, you know, 322. And sometimes your blogs are going to be too long. And it's really important that you are breaking those up so that they are easy to read. People aren't going to read every single word, or very rarely are they going to read every single word. The fact is that they can click, they can have a look, they can, from those subheadings, from the imagery, they can get a good enough idea and understanding of the article that they can then go, oh yeah, this is interesting, this is worth my time to read. So I think, you know, adding in the extra imagery as well to break things up. I mean, I do think that gets paid attention to as well in terms of the readability of the article. Google does look at readability as a signal too.
I think one blog that I wrote, which was the 5 marketing blogs to read in 2020 or something. And I think Jane had originally, when she was putting that blog on, it didn't have the, so it had obviously the subtitles, but it didn't have the image of the cover of the book. And then, so before she hit publish or anything, she said, oh, let's just try it and see what it looks like. And I think automatically from putting those images within there, so obviously it was 5 images to go with the 5 subheadings, it just transformed it straight away and made it look so much better, I think. And I think with having those images and having the alt text put behind them as well, not only would have made it look better, it gave it a clearer layout because it was divided by the images, and it would have ranked better as well because all of those images would have had the alt text behind them. So yeah, I think sometimes I think you can put one image in and it looks fine, but other times when it's relevant to put more than one in, and it can transform the blog and make it look so much better. I think.
Totally agree.
Yeah, again, it's that visual experience that, whether it's a blog or a normal page, it's what's best for the content. You know, some pages will have just a header image, and that is fine because it works with what's on there. Other pages need more imagery to break things up, you know, and especially if there's a lot of text, it can, you know, having images will just, you know, give natural breaks to the text as well. And now you've got the block editor in WordPress, you can do sort of a little bit more interesting layouts, even as standard within blogs, whereas before it was quite difficult for people to do that, but now you've got columns and things, so you can make it a bit visually more interesting as well.
So on that note, Mark, with the new editor and stuff like that, obviously Google has kind of changed things up in terms of rich snippets, questions and that kind of stuff. So what advice, firstly, like what is it and what advice do you have for people based on that?
It's a thing called what we'd call term structured data. So if we've got a blog post, Google knows that that is an article. So within WordPress and other web builders, it knows that that is a blog and it can index it as an article. But there are lots of different structured data sets now. So obviously we work with a lot of recruiters. A job is now its own structured data. So if a vacancy is tagged with certain what we call schema in the background, it will then appear in the Google for Jobs sort of search. But then relevant to sort of blogs, we've got things like FAQ and how-to structured data. So again, it comes within Yoast on our sites, but we can actually create a how-to. So it might be just a series of steps, or an FAQ, which is like question and answer type things. And then if you do a Google search, again, someone was saying earlier, how do I? And then it starts to bring up things, but then you get like a rich snippet of like one maybe article, and that is what's being created from that structured data. So it's just giving people an idea of what that is. So it's something very specific.
Yeah, so you've probably seen it in your Google searches. Rather than just like having all your results laid out like you normally would, there's now a section there that is like a series of questions, a list of questions. When you click on each question, it opens up with the answer, or like a statement that opens up with an answer, and that's the bit that Mark's sort of referring to. So I think actually, if you can start to use things like that in your websites and blogs like that within your blogs, it's really, really useful, really useful. And again, it's just those signals to Google all the time without compromising the user experience. And remembering to actually promote the fact that your website exists in the first place. So, we've talked about sharing your blogs, but actually, if you're going to do, let's say you've got a team of people and you want to do a meet the team kind of thing, can you link that back to your About Us page maybe? Or, those static pages on your site that are not going to change or unlikely to change. We still want to be kind of creating links to those through our online content as well. Whether that's links in your bios, links in posts, commenting and including links with that information as well. It's about getting traffic to your site, as well as once they're on your site, making sure you're signposting them to consume content and to follow a journey through your site, basically follow that path that ultimately brings them to the point where they're filling in the form for the download, or filling in the form so they can request the appointment with you, or literally just picking up the phone. That's what we need to achieve.
I have a question. When you're, so obviously we advise to sort of update your content and the content on your website in terms of the blogs and that type of thing. But in terms of other pages that, like you were saying, Christina, like a meet the team page or something like that, that may not necessarily change as often, would it be worth going in there and maybe altering the wording or something like that, I don't know, once a month, slightly, just to sort of I don't know, sort of, does that send an alert out then to Google, basically saying this has been changed? Or because you're constantly changing the content, does it not then matter so much if you're not changing slight wording or something on more static pages?
So changing the wording on static pages, if it's just little tweaks, the difference is negligible.
Right, okay.
But you need to make sure that information is up to date. So let's say on your About Us page, you've got some stats there. Okay, so why should you use social media? And we put stats that have come from, HubSpot or Hootsuite or whoever. Well, those stats are going to change every year.
Yeah.
And that's something we need to tweak and keep up to date.
Right, okay.
If we've linked through to a survey from 3 years ago that is updated annually, we need to make sure we're updating those links on a regular basis.
Right.
You probably don't need to look at it weekly, monthly. It's probably more of a quarterly thing, 6 monthly, annually. What I would do, however, is in your Google Analytics, pay attention to which are your most popular page, like what are your top 10 most viewed pages for that month or that quarter, and then go and look at those pages as a user as someone that's never been on your site before, look at it on your desktop, look at it on your mobile and say, right, actually, what is the experience? What has this page actually communicated to me? What's this page telling me to do next? If a lot of people are hitting that page and then disappearing off your site, just bouncing off, not doing anything else, it's probably because there's nothing on that page that's telling them what the next step is or enticing them to take the next step, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So one of our clients, their About Us page is always like the second thing when we're looking at the most popular sites for them. So, you know, we've looked at stuff like, we've now put like a banner on their site that is to do with one of their downloads, and we're looking at changing that sort of on a regular basis. We've talked about doing something called exit intent on that page as well, which is, it's a pop-up, but the pop-up only appears when someone goes to leave the site. So we're kind of disrupting them leave in the hope that they'll actually stay on the site a bit longer. And what's in that pop-up is something that they can click on to take them to another page in the site. Okay, so like I said, it really is about, you know, a page that's on your site that's static, that no one's ever going to see, that people, you know, people are not really that interested in. Are we going to spend loads of time keeping it updated? To be honest, I'd rather you spent that time producing fresh content and updating the pages that are getting the traffic so that they can be even more powerful for you.
Yeah, cool. Makes sense.
We've got a little plug from Paul for the BizCon webinar this afternoon with hashtag PinoPam.
Pam, I think you need to
other alcohol.
Yeah. 3 p.m. and he says PM him. Obviously, you can find that in the comments, and he will give you the link and the password if anyone wants to join that.
Pam.
What's that webinar on, Pam?
Oh, it's on. Well, it's basically turning your marketing around at the moment. I suppose because it's just everything's so interchangeable, isn't it? It's, you know, who's predicting what's going on, but yeah, it's just kind of like how to turn it around.
I love you didn't use the word pivot.
Well, it's in the title, but it's not my favourite word. I didn't, you know.
Hey, that word was trendy about 4 weeks ago when we first started planning webinars.
Last weekend, I was like looking for synonyms for pivot.
There is, I mean, I know we've probably all said this, but there's so many words that just, you know, that, and in fact, there's something that Amanda said earlier, and I thought she was going to say content is king. And I was going to go, no. I mean, I know we have to use that, but...
Paul said you've used pivot with him.
Pivot Pam.
Pivot Pam now, not Pinot Pam.
I'm not sure about that. With Pinot Pam.
Or maybe it could be pivot with Pinot Pam. It could be a whole new hashtag. Oh, sorry.
Pivoting your marketing with Pinot Pam.
I think no. I think that just no.
I don't know what kind of reputation this is giving me at the moment.
Oh, if anyone wants to find out, 3 p.m. today.
So yeah, okay. On that note, so has anyone got anything else to talk about?
We've got a webinar tonight. Green Umbrella have a webinar tonight.
Oh yeah.
Well, you've got one this afternoon. It's Webinar Central today again.
I've got one at 3 o'clock with an organisation called Members Only, which is a recruitment organisation for recruitment owners and consultants. So in that one, I'm talking about sort of the tools that you can use in your marketing, showing some tools there. And then at
6:30.
I'm doing a webinar that is a public webinar, so anyone that wants to sort of, you know, get their seat on this one, and that is on how to get over your live video fears. So it's just about being comfortable
like this.
I think I need to watch that.
If you rewind to what 6-7 weeks ago when we did our first one of these, you know, there wasn't a lot of people in the team. Oh my God, what are we going to talk about? How's it going to be? Whereas now we're just like, yes, Thursday, it's lunchtime when we go. So, so yeah, your training has worked well for us. So you can share some of your secrets.
Absolutely.
That is true.
Actually, if anyone, just a small plug, if anyone is interested, please do comment on the.
We can put the link in, can't we?
send the link out. Well, yeah,
Well, I
across the
think
link.
Paul said he needs to send it with a password. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Paul's is private, so so either just message Paul directly and he can sort that out for you. The live video one is you have to book through Eventbrite for us. So yeah, if Amanda or Pam, if you can put the link in afterwards, that would be cool too. And I think, I mean, I have on my screen some stats from Twitter from some research they did that is basically, they did some research from what do people want from brands in terms of like what's been going on in the COVID scenario. What we do is, Emily, I'll shoot that over to you, and then if you can just put it in as a post on the Green Umbrella page anyway, people can look at that. But it's really interesting, some of the stuff that's on here. It's stuff that we've been saying over the last 6-8 weeks anyway. So, you know, making sure the information, 89% of people want brands to provide reliable and accurate information. 86% want brands to be helping support the vulnerable in society. 80% want brands to show how they're supporting their employees, which is kind of one of the reasons this live show came about, because I wanted everyone to know that as a team we were A-OK and continue to witness the madness. 74% want brands to showcase their acts of kindness. We've probably failed on that, really. I don't know. I don't think we are particularly kind to each other. That's not a word we'd use here, is it? Yeah, it's a... And what's really interesting, bearing in mind how many communications we've had, okay, from businesses, from the CEO saying, yes, we're going to make our staff all wash their hands now. And this is how we're going to handle the COVID pandemic. And, you know, all those emails you've had and the social media campaigns that we've seen and that kind of stuff, okay? So think about that. The stats I've shared with you are all like, you know, 80%, high 70s, that kind of stuff. It's 58% of people want brands to share their experience as a business in terms of their challenges and their plans. And I think that there's a message there in itself. Actually, we don't care about how you as a business are getting through this. What we do care about is that you're you know, the customer service is on point, that you're being kind to others, that you are supporting your community, that you are looking after your people working on the front line, and, you know, putting positivity out there. When it comes to this is how this is what our process is going to be, people are just not excited by that. And yet, as business owners, you kind of feel like you need to communicate that, you know, business as usual, business as usual. You know, and this is how we're going to maintain our service. And actually, people don't want to know that. They just want you to do it. They want you to do it and tell us the positive stuff afterwards that give us the value. So I think that when you look down the stats, I think it's really interesting. But we know the stuff I find interesting is dull for everyone else.
You're a stats woman, Christina.
I like that as well.
I like this, but you know, I can never remember any of them.
Not like Jane. Jane would remember all of them.
Yeah, I don't remember numbers, but
There's
That's why she's not here. She just goes through burning stats into her brain.
Similar, the similar thing for Pinterest. I know that everyone uses Pinterest, but yeah, it was very similar and had the same sort of, although I can't remember the stats either. But yeah, it was of a very similar vein as what you were sort of saying as well, and kind of like how you're sort of anticipating. It did have like a sort of curve of what people were searching for and what their expectations were from various brands. And, you know, they were sort of saying, you know, even if we're kind of, you know, as, you know, kind of like, or if brands are kind of like, you know, at the bottom of the list and they're not feeling that great about what's going to happen in the future, actually their customers are kind of out the other end and ready to hear the positive stuff now. So it's kind of like you're not all in the same curve, basically. I don't know. No.
Emily, have you got anything to finish off?
No, I don't think so. I think I did have a point and now I've forgotten it. This is my day. This has been my day today. What were you talking about, Pam? This might trigger my memory. You were talking about Pinterest, weren't you? and curves. I can't remember. I had a point. I'm sorry. I've
I thought you were just going to plug your own Instagram.
I know.
thought you were
Not
too
gonna
as
do
well.
that. Oh no, I remember it.
I suppose you haven't got a card with Victoria Cottage on.
Right, my point is going back to the kindness thing and what people are expecting, Christina, is I don't know about anyone else. People may not agree with me on this, but certain things that I have ordered, their delivery has been far slower than what it usually is. And whilst sort of I think there's a line in terms of customer service and that side of things. So I had one, I ordered a photo book basically for my partner's birthday, and it took way over a month to get here. It was supposed to take about 3 days. And so I emailed them, sort of making sure I was being super friendly in this email. And I think the thing is, they came back to me and their customer service was great, really. And they were really nice. And they were just sort of really apologetic that it had taken so long. But I think people also have to have the understanding that certain things that they're ordering right now in terms of e-commerce and that side of things aren't necessarily that important. And I think there's got to be the kindness both ways, where people are sort of, like I said, there's a line, and I understand things can go too far, like if you ordered something 6 months ago or something like that. But I mean, I think it's the customer service. If they're giving you the good customer service, we have to be understanding that they're putting themselves at risk technically to be at work, and they've also had to have new processes and work out a new way of working in order for their employees to work safely. And if we're wanting to know how companies are looking after their employees, that may then have an effect on how long it takes for our order to turn up, basically. It just sort of, it reminds me, because I was having that conversation with Christiane, one of our social mediators, because she has her side business, her fashion business, and she was sort of saying how certain people haven't really been very kind or understanding with everything else that's going on at the moment. So I think it's important just to realise both ways. So the customer service still has to be there, but at the same time, we need to be more understanding that certain things like that aren't actually that important, like photo books, may take a long time to get here, basically. No, so I did have a point, and it wasn't about Victoria Cottage.
No, it's the tolerance thing, isn't it? And I think
so.
Everyone needs to have an increased level of tolerance. And I think maybe where people might have used social media to, make their complaints known, that sort of stuff. I do think there's been a bit of a shift in that.
Yeah, I think people are being more tolerant. Like I said, there is a line, and I think if the company or whoever you're dealing with isn't dealing with it in the right way, well, then that's obviously going to aggravate you. But I think, like you said, I think people are being more tolerant towards things like that in general, and people that aren't, then maybe they should think about that.
Try and be kind.
Exactly.
And Amanda, before we finish off, anything extra from you?
I don't think so. This is 6 minutes over an hour. People need to eat.
I suddenly thought my webinar's actually at 2, not 3.
Yeah, I didn't want to remind you of that in case I was wrong, but yeah.
So I need to shoot as well. And
you know me, always thinking about food.
Yeah. She is. Cool. Okay, well, that's us for this week. And I hope everyone is happy and positive and not suffering through the lockdown and all that kind of stuff. And just as always, any questions you guys have got for us, just reach out to us, whether it's through Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, through the website. Use the live chat. It's the people answering it are the people on screen, not robots. So you chat to us there as well if you would like to.
I don't know whether he's still on actually, but John Scotcher was on earlier. So hi, John. He actually he rang the GU number and I answered, and he thought I was an answer service because I was so professional and polite.
Well, that's not used to professional on the phone, man.
It's like shock. Right, on that note, let's say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.